everyone, it's Nicole here for Simon Says Stamp with a one-layer floral card featuring components from the February 2019 card kit. This beautiful card kit comes with an awesome 6x8 stamp set called Love Always that I am going to feature today on both the front and inside of my card, as well as an envelope. So in the kit, there is a pack of 3 pre-scored black note cards. I'm going to use one of them as my card base today. I'm also going to use some of the ivory cardstock from the kit that I'm going to trim to 4 by 5¼ inches. That's going to leave a nice little border all the way around so you can see that black note card on the front and on the inside of the kit as it is. And I'm going to stamp my ivory cardstock with some Simon Says Stamp dye inks. And I'm using my ink swatches, and I'm also using the pattern paper from the kit to pick some ink colors that I think will complement and coordinate nicely. I'm going with Twirling, TUTU, and Merlot, and I'm going to start with my sentiments in the center of my panel, stamping the larger of the two greetings with the Twirling TUTU ink. I am using a MISTI. The stamp positioner really helps stamp everything exactly where you want it to go. I stamped the smaller phrase with the Merlot ink, and then I cleaned those stamps and moved them, and I'm going to position my floral stamp from the Love Always stamp set. All the stamps are from the Love Always stamp set. I'm going to position my florals, and I'm going to ink those up with a light ink. And I started with Barely Beige, and it is barely visible. So I ended up changing that to Fossil ink because I still need to see. This is a no-line coloring technique, and you might think, wow, that outline is really dark. As the ink dries, it really starts to disappear. So I would say you want to color this right away. I mean, you don't have to speed through it, and you definitely can't. I think this technique does take a little bit of time. However, if you color it right away, you're going to maintain the outline, the stamped outline, a little bit longer than you would if you walk away and come back. What happened was with my first stamped floral grouping here, the one I did first, I stamped it, I started coloring it, I went to lunch, I came back, and it's quite a bit lighter, and you're going to see that in a little bit. I got quite a bit colored. I got this big rose bloom colored and the leaves colored before I went to lunch and came back, and so you'll see that it does definitely lighten. When I stamp the reverse, the floral grouping on the second underneath, so the bottom half, I guess I want to say, of this panel, I stamped it and colored it all in one go, and it went much faster. Another thing is when you're starting out coloring, maybe you don't know exactly what all colors you want to use. That was the case here. I knew I wanted to use a couple of color combinations for my roses, and so I grabbed some colored pencils and I started coloring. I am using POLYCHROMOS, which blend beautifully on the cardstock. You could use these on the darker cardstocks in the kit and still get fantastic results. So just a great little idea for creating a no-line coloring look. I ended up outlining the petals and things. I found that was the easiest, and naturally where there's a lot more ink, where there's darker areas, I went over those with my darkest color in each grouping, and then kind of shaded in my mid-tone color, and then finished with a lighter color all over the top. That's going to give the petals a really beautiful finished look, I think. And you're still going to maintain that detail. I made sure the darkest color I used, in this case the red violet, was really down there first, and then I colored over the top, and you're still going to be able to see that dark area. That's what gives these roses such definition and all of that fantastic detail. So coloring over the entire petal with my lightest color, and just adding in all of that fun detail. I have listed the color combinations of polychromos I'm using across the bottom of the screen. So if at any time you are curious exactly what colors I used, you can find that information there if you like those color combinations. I went with a darker green color combination. Again, pulled it straight from the pattern papers from the kit. The kit does have some beautiful, authentic romance 6x6 pattern papers. They're double-sided. I'm anxious to share some more cards from this kit using those beautiful pattern papers. I decided to go ahead and do as much of the greenery as I could see. I did speed up the coloring simply because it is rather time consuming. I kept all of it in, but I wanted to speed it up a little bit so that we weren't sitting here all day watching me color in these roses. You could also repeat this pattern all over the background. You could definitely stamp these images and not color them in. You could stamp them with a clear embossing ink, add the clear embossing powder that comes in the kit, and apply distress inks over them for a distress inked background with beautiful outlines of these flowers. There is just so many things you can do with this stamp set. It's an incredible stamp set with beautiful florals, a bird, hearts. We're going to use the music notes border to create a really subtle background over everything once we get all of our images colored in. But lots and lots of ways to use this fabulous kit. So just kind of alternating between the more pink color combination and the red or Merlot color combination. Definitely pulled that kind of color from the Merlot ink I used and from the pattern paper colors, and then the pinks very much from the pattern paper colors. I love having a pencil sharpener handy when coloring with colored pencils. That way I can sharpen my pencils often. I really prefer a sharp point. Now the great thing is I did not remove my floral stamp from my MISTI, so I am simply going to pop it back in there, flip my paper around, and stamp the image again. I didn't have to position the floral image at all. All I had to do was just flip my paper upside down, place it in the MISTI, and stamp my image with that fossil ink again. Just like before, going to trace over the flowers and add in all of that beautiful detailing and color. Now, since the coloring of this is exactly like the first group of flowers, I am going to go ahead and skip on to the next part of this card. And here's what my panel looks like when it's all colored in. Beautiful as is. You could totally pop this on your card and your card would be good to go. I decided I wanted a little bit of a distressing background, but I want it to be really light. Instead of grabbing another ink color, I am going to ink up the music notes border with the Twirling TUTU ink, stamp it off once on a scrap piece of paper, and then do the second generation stamping all over my background, repeating this all the way down the panel. This is going to give you a very faint music note background. In fact, it's a little bit hard to see here as I'm stamping it. You can see it a little bit better in real life, but I wasn't going for a super defined background. I was going more of a distressed kind of background, something that just adds a little bit of color but doesn't overpower the florals and sentiment, which are definitely the focal point of this card design. I also did not worry about masking off my flowers. I stamped right over them. That doesn't bother me at all. I have done cards similar to this in the past, and I do the same thing. As long as the ink is light enough, because remember, it is a dye ink, as it is absorbed into the paper, it will lighten. And since this is a second generation stamping, it's going to be very light anyway. Next, it's time to do some of those finishing details. I wanted to add some hearts from the stamp set to my card with the Merlot ink. Especially right below my greetings, I wanted to add a small heart because it's spaced. The sentiments are a little bit closer to the top group of flowers than the bottom, and that really fills in our greeting area a lot nicer. So I want to add one there. I also want to add a couple of hearts up high and a couple of hearts down low, just to give it a little bit more decoration in the background. And I'm also going to glue this panel then, or adhere this panel to one of the black note cards from the kit. I stamped the hearts off on a scrap piece of paper before stamping them, just to make sure I was going to get a good impression since I'd never used them before. And that worked great. So there's a couple of those. And then we'll do a couple more down below. Next, I am going to take my panel, and I haven't adhered it to the card yet. I decided to take some glossy accents and the unicorn glitter from the kit. And we are going to dust this over the flowers. This is a Prisma glitter, and so I'm just applying a little bit of glossy accents to my florals, kind of along the areas that might be the darkest. And then I'm using a coffee filter to pick up any of that excess glitter, sprinkling that on and tapping off the excess. This is going to give my flowers this beautiful Prisma glitter appearance, and it just kind of takes them up a little bit, takes them up a notch, makes them sparkly and pretty, and really adds to a one-layer card design. So even though this is one layer, there is so much detail going on to the background stamping, to the coloring, the different colors of ink for the greetings, the glitter accents, the stamped hearts that we've stamped on the card. We're going to finish those with a little layer of glossy accents so that they have a glossy raised finish when dry as well. All of those little touches really lend themselves to making a one-layer card so special and beautiful. Let's set that glitter aside now and add that glossy accents to the hearts, which will give them a glossy raised finish when dry and really helps set them apart from the background. Almost like enamel stickers. I'm going to put adhesive on my note card instead of my panel since the glue is still wet, and then take my panel to the note card to secure it in place. Now, because this is a black note card, you'll either have to use a white pin on the inside, or here in a second I'm going to show you how I got around that, because I think that a white panel inside is really going to make this a lot easier to write a little note to the recipient. I'm also going to take one of the coordinating envelopes from the kit. I'm taking the metallic ivory envelope and stamping the other floral from the Love Always stamp set in the lower left corner using the Merlot ink. This is a metallic envelope, so dye inks do not dry well on this. Pigment inks don't dry well on this. This is going to be a great opportunity to take that clear embossing ink from the kit, tap that onto the flower we just stamped, and emboss that so it's nice and permanent and it's not going to wipe off. And this provides such a beautiful finishing touch, and it coordinates so nicely with our love-themed floral card. Next, I'm going to just take another piece of that ivory cardstock that we used for the front panel, and we're going to trim that to 4 by 5 1/4 inches, so the same as on the front. We're going to take another sentiment from the Love Always stamp set. Our love story is my favorite, and we're going to stamp that with the Twirling TUTU ink that we used on the front of the card. And that's just going to finish off the inside beautifully. We're going to position it kind of in the upper 2/3 of the background so that leaves us plenty of room to handwrite a message to the recipient. Again, we'll glue this to the inside of the black note card, and we have a complete finished matching card and envelope, perfect for Valentine's or anytime you need a love-themed card. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this card featuring components from the Simon Says Stamp February 2019 card kit. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.